Gun violence continues to be a plague for our country, and I was this on my mind a lot back in 2012, and when we were dealing with the tragedy in Newtown. But it has been on my mind, continually since then because it seems I think gun violence doesn't stop in America, and it is quite tragic. I've also sat with, gosh, so many families who have lost loved ones to gun violence, and I've taken care of so many patients over the years who have sadly not only felt the acute effects of gun violence, but who are living for years afterwards with the long-term effects in terms of spinal cord injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder. So I don't even think that we're fully aware of the cost of gun violence, because it's not only in lives lost, but it's in lives affected in such profound ways for years and years after an incident. When I was a Surgeon General, I actually found myself talking quite a bit about gun violence because I was asked a lot about gun violence wherever I went. It was a topic that was certainly important to me. And even though during my tenure as Surgeon General, we focused most on the substance use and addiction crisis that we have in America, it was very common for me to discuss gun violence with communities wherever I went. And my belief on addressing gun violence in America is that we have to do a series of things to actually get to the root of the problem. This is not about passing one law that's going to stop all gun violence in America. If someone leads you to believe that if we just pass one law, it's going to make all the difference in the world. That is unfortunately not the case, although that's not to say we shouldn't have passed sensible laws that will start to make incremental change. But I believe that there are at least four categories of measures that we have to take. Number one, we do need sensible gun laws. We need, for example, there to be the case that we do need, for example, to have gun laws that enforce background checks. That there's broad agreement in the country around the need for background checks, yet we have not been able to both pass and enforce effective laws around background checks. And that is extremely unfortunate, and I think that's a product of politics, not of well-informed, thoughtful science or public policy. The second category of things that we have to do is that we have to invest more in gun safety. There are still parents who don't realize the danger of leaving their young children alone in the house with weapons that are loaded and unlocked. And far too often it happens that a child gets a hold of one of those weapons and ends up injuring or killing themselves or other people. The third category of things we have to do is investing more in mental health. And that means ensuring that we are not just getting access to treatment, which is incredibly important, but that we are also screening at young ages. The average time it takes from the presentation of symptoms to the actual diagnosis of mental illness is about 10 years, which is incredibly long, unacceptably long. And so we need to expand our access to both screening and treatment when it comes to mental illness. With that said, though, the important caveat here, just like with the other categories, if someone says, well, we just need to strengthen our mental health system and then we'll address gun violence, that's also not true. And I would, again, say this is one part of the solution, but it's not the entire solution. There's actually two additional categories that we should focus on, and the fourth is actually around research into the causes and solutions for gun violence. We do not invest nearly as much as we should be in studying gun violence. And because Congress has not put forth dedicated funds to actually do that, there are millions and millions of dollars that we have decided to invest as a country in research on breast cancer and heart disease and other causes of illness. There are illnesses that affect far fewer people than gun violence that we are putting millions of dollars into. Yet because gun violence is a political issue, research funding for it has been choked off by Congress. And that's an unconscionable tragedy. And so we need to undo that chokehold. We need to get research money where it belongs, in the hands of people who can do research into the causes and solutions to gun violence. And then we need to pass policies that are driven by science and not by ideology.